It's being recorded.
Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. I hope everyone's having a lovely day. Tonight's video will be entitled Merchant Exchange Banking. Merchant Exchange Banking. This is something that my career was built upon the pillars of merchant exchange banking and auditing banking and bankers. In financial terms, merchant exchange banking is not a single standardized term, lexicon of term. It is basically a combination of various topics. One is merchant banking and merchant accounting, two different topics to keep track of the business affairs and financial dealings amongst merchants. Now, a merchant is a businessman who barters or exchanges, trades goods and services for digital money, cash money, a monetary unit. It can be an exchange, food for guns, guns for oil, that type of thing, right? I think Ronald Reagan and Oliver North and Bud McFarland and William Secord, they perfected the art of arms for hostages, arms for drugs, drugs for arms. Kind of confusing, right? But those are barter and exchanges. No one's writing a check so that you can audit. Anyway, I want you to know that basically merchant banking pertains to businesses, not individuals. Now, of course, it expands out to the individuals who are the employees whose payroll is met, and it extends to the owners or founders of the business and the creditors of the business, which 9,000 times out of 9,101 times, you'll find that the banker is lending money to their customers, to their bank customers of debits and credits, their accounts. That you have an account with the merchant banker. This will enable the timeliness and efficiency of transactions amongst those who are primarily focused on their business dealings. Gold, silver, wheat, grain, rice, alfalfa, moving products from a farm field onto trailers, onto a barge, onto a river system, then to a ship, then to a port authority at a faraway place in exchange for gold coins, silver coins, or some credit dollar amount, some unit of currency to be credited to your account at the merchant bank. So again, we're talking about businesses engaged in business and their accounts at a bank, which we refer to as the merchant bank. And this keeps everything working in a efficient and organized manner, so there's no panicking or chaos or annoyances. A merchant bank is a specialized type of financial institution that provides services to private corporations, high net worth individuals, large companies, and of course, military black ops, murder, and terrorism groups. Merchant banks provide banking to terrorism groups. Yes, I said it. You're not going to get that on Wikipedia. Anyway, services include as follows: underwriting or capital raising money through private equity, venture capital, or lending the money outright through credit lending. That's right. Merchant banking can engage in credit lending of a business customer. Also provides a bank provides financial advisory services regarding merchant mergers, acquisitions, restructuring, bankruptcies, reorganizations. All of these things can be discussed in conference rooms of buildings belonging to merchant banks. Again, I told you they can make loans or arrange financing so you can grow your business. And then it provides asset and wealth management services so that clients don't pull their profits out of the bank. So in other words, the bank retains control of all the proceeds of all their lending, whether or not they borrow from one person and then lend it to another person. Both people are typically customers of the bank. Do you see how banking works now? It's like a merry-go-round. You just pull one kid off the pony on the backside of the merry-go-round and you put them on a different pony on the other side, and everybody thinks they've got a transaction when really nothing's changed. You just reposition the children on the merry-go-round. That sums up merchant banking, in my opinion. It's an honest brokerage firm where you control the board. It's like the Monopoly game. You control Park Place and Boardwalk. You control Broadway. You control Vermont Avenue. You control the casino. You own the casino. And the casino never loses. The casino never loses. They always win because they take a percentage off the top. A merchant account is a specialized business bank account that allows companies to accept and process electronic credit or debit payments, or in the old days, have a ledger system, a double ledger accounting. Remember double ledger, balanced books, debits must equal credits in aggregate. That was done by quill or pen or pencil in the olden days. Businesses must partner with their merchant acquired banking cohorts to set up such accounts. There's what's called the correspondent network of merchant banks, where banks from different cities and townships throughout the world will cooperate with each other because, they're all part of a centralized banking authority in Switzerland. Today, that central authority is referred to as BIS, Bank for International Settlements. They lord over all lesser banks, including all central bank authority, including merchant banks, who are participating within a federal central bank system. But it all rolls up into Basel, Switzerland, Bank for International Settlements. Okay, it's essential to have such accounts so that retail and wholesale businesses can understand where their money went and the sources and uses of their money. All right, the bank needs to keep track of who is doing what to whom. In other words, the bank is an intelligence center. It knows everything. It's like the HAL 9000. They know what you've been doing. They know when you've been bad. It's like Santa Claus, right? A bank is like Santa Claus, which is like to say it's a HAL 9000, the AI in the sky, looking and watching and surveilling you. There's no entity ever created in this world that is a greater threat to privacy than is a bank. Okay. They know everything. And they have a security system to back up their control and power. All right. In a broader sense, integration of merchant banking services with payment processing for businesses, especially in overseas or cross-border transactions, is an important service offered by merchant banking. All right, merchant banking essentially equals specialized corporate and client services regarding financing, lending, and or equity capital fundraising. Merchant accounting has to do with the payment processing for transactions involving other customers of the merchant bank. The merchant bank extracts transaction fees on all transactions. You knew that, I'm sure. Merchant exchange banking can also mean bank and financial service provider that combines both offering finance and advisory to a business while also enabling them to process their own electronic payments. I'm sure nobody thinks that's a conflict of interest, and in some ways it isn't. But if you don't trust your banker, it most definitely is a conflict of interest. If you think your banker will make a large profit if you consolidate with a cohort, and you don't like that advice, don't be surprised if your deposits take an extra week to be cleared, right? You see banks in a position to assert great control over you and to exploit their customers. Banks don't want you to know that, but they do consider your deposits to be accounts receivable. You think that's your money. The bank doesn't. They think you're a pesky creditor. I'm just telling you, as an auditor of banks, banks do not characterize customer deposits as valuable items. They consider them pesky and annoying creditors who are begging for their money. But the bank feels like your money is their money. This gives rise to the concept of security systems, which evolves from the very beginning. Before there were navies and armies on this world, the merchant exchange banks had to hire armed guards to guard the payroll and the deposits and the vault and stand guard at night 24/7, install a perimeter fence line. That's how it began. And then, of course, as crusades happened and business and merchant transactions followed the road looking for silver, gold, and spices, accompanied by priests who had swords called Knights Templar, the Knights Templar. They accompanied the bank wagons to carry the coinage. The physical currency was guarded. And these Catholic priests, they didn't work for free. You had to provide food, lodging, and donations to their future, make promises to them. This could be then construed as mercenaries, people who work for a flat fee or an agreed upon contract price to guard the payroll, to guard your vault, to guard your customer deposits. And it turns out banks are the number one employer of security services throughout the world, which is now going to include the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. All the fellows of the World Economic Forum are essentially mercenaries. They work for money. They work for money, and they do the bidding of the central bank authority. The World Bank is a puppet of the United Nations. The United Nations is a puppet of the Bank for International Settlements. The World Bank is a submissive to BIS and Credit Suisse Boston, or Credit Suisse, what do we call it? In Zurich, Switzerland, we have Swiss Bank, Union Bank of Switzerland. Union Bank of Switzerland and Bank of International Settlements sit at the top of the pyramid, and they lord over the World Bank, the IMF. All the central bankers of the world have to pay homage to settle all their accounts internationally through the casino known as Bank for International Settlements of Basel, Switzerland. It's where Johann Sutter is from. You remember the guy who discovered gold in California? He's from the Central Bank for Central Banks of all central banks. Sand Hill Road Private Equity Bankers, you've heard me mention them many times on my channel. Sequoia Capital, Kleiner Perkins, KKR Excel, Excel KKR, Jim Breyer Capital, Founders Fund. These are private equity merchant banking. They enable companies like Apple Computer, Facebook, Alphabet, Google, Genentech, Chiron, Novartis, CRISPR Therapeutics, Nectar Therapeutics, Human Augmentation, Smart Dust, Dumping, Coast Aluminum, Dust Networks, Analog Devices, companies like NVIDIA, companies like Cisco Systems, LSI Logic, Cray Supercomputer, Texas Instruments, National Semiconductor, Cypress Semiconductor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Other people that could fit into the category of private security systems are private foundations like the Bill and Melinda Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or like the New York Metropolitan Foundation for Opera or Symphony, or the foundations, the many hundreds of foundations that endowment funds at Harvard University, Yale, Princeton, Stanford University, they all have endowment funds which act the role of nonprofit foundations. They can engage in money laundering activities, which could be construed as crimes if they were known to the public, but they're done privately, so we don't know. Can't say if it's criminal or not. It's top secret. All right. All personnel that are engaged in dumping chemtrails over our heads or manipulating the weather, creating tornadoes and hurricanes when there should be none, creating super high temperatures in the desert when it, 116 degrees is hot enough and you want to push it to 125, weather warfare. We're talking about the people who run all of the Black Ops airplanes, Southern Air Transport, Rickenbacker International Airport, Evergreen International Aviation Incorporated, Ericsson Incorporated, Evergreen International Airlines, talking about Civil Air Transport, CAT, talking about Air America, Janet Airlines for Area 51 and 52, Harry Reid International Airport, Southern California Logistics Airport, Moffett Field, Travis Air Force Base, Beale Air Force Base, Nellis Air Force Base, Patterson Air Force Base. I'm talking about the people who are flying airplanes that are conducting crimes against humanity throughout the world, certainly throughout the United States. Swiss Bank sponsored CRISPR Therapeutics. They're involved with crimes against humanity, warfare involving all their cohorts, such as DARPA, the partners of Jennifer Doudna and CRISPR Therapeutics, human augmentation of your DNA. They're partnered with DARPA, which is the Department of Defense, and Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. That's what DARPA stands for. The RAND Corporation, Dust Networks, Analog Devices, Department of Energy, NATO forces, Coast Aluminum, Dinovax Technology, COVID hoax vaccines, American Polyfoam, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, Weapons Lab, Site 100, Site 200, Site 300, the Doudna Lab at 2151 Berkeley Way off Phoebe Hearst Boulevard, Innovative Genomic Institute that her second husband runs, Innovative Genomic Institute, Caribou Biosciences, operated by Rachel Horowitz, who is a PhD student of Jennifer Doudna, California Institute of Technologies, Carnegie Mellon University, UC San Diego, UC Berkeley, UC San Francisco, University of Illinois Urbana, University of Michigan, University of Pennsylvania, University of Texas at Dallas, University of Washington, Howard Hughes Medical Institute, HHMI, UCLA Terry Semel Neuroscience Center, talking about the Sandler Institute at UC San Francisco, Mission Bay, talking about the Wheel Institute and the Brain Project. We're talking about deployment of Cas9 CRISPR weaponry by Nectar Therapeutics and Caribou Biosciences, all affiliated with the University of California, San Francisco in Mission Bay as part of the Precision Medicine Foundry Weapons Program. All right, we're talking about the regents for all of the University of California System University campuses, which there are at least 9, Harvard University, Yale, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Princeton University, Stanford University, California Institute of Technology, talking about all the board members, all the trustees of all those military pseudo-educational opportunities. We're talking about all the spy pilots, reconnaissance pilots for the military. I'm talking about Charles Older, Evel Younger, Aaron Stovich, who convicted the Manson family. I'm talking about all of them. Frank Sturgis, Clay Shaw, David Ferry, Guy Bannister, Jack Ruby, Jacob Rubenstein. I'm talking about Oliver Stone. I'm talking about Oliver Silverstein Stone. I'm talking about Oliver North, Robert Carl Bud McFarlane of the Iran-Contra scandal. I'm talking about Major General Richard Secord. I'm talking about Eugene Hasenfuss, who was shot down in an Air America cargo plane over Nicaragua. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm talking about Sharon Tate's father, Paul Tate, a colonel in the United States Army, along with Timothy Leary, another officer in the United States Army. Timothy Leary, Charles Chuck Dietrich of the Church of Synanon, Howard Levy, you know him as Anton LaVey, talking about Michael Aquino, Jane Fonda, who went to Hanoi, Sean Penn, who went to Russia to interview Putin, Sean Penn, okay, William Colby, Ben Bradley, Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. They're operating in black ops having to do with mercenary work, along with Carl Bernstein, Seymour Hersh, Lawrence Scheller, Tucker Carlson, and his father, Dick Carlson, the voice of public radio, NPR, National Public Radio. Dick Carlson, the father of Tucker, was the most trusted voice in America after Walter Cronkite. And they're both working for the military intelligence. And of course, Geraldo, whose real name is Jerry Rivers of New Jersey. All the fellows of all the so-called pseudo institutes, the Hoover Institute, Victor Davis Hanson, Condoleezza Rice, Henry Kissinger, Milton Friedman, George Shultz. They were all members of they were fellows of the Hoover Institute. Aspen Institute in Aspen, Colorado, And you got Claremont Institute, Asian Institute, Brookings Institute, Brain Project Institute in New York. You got smart meter installation personnel, City Works installing LED streetlights, painting the crosswalk sidewalks with nanobots, utility workers in the field who support and service military installations and the fusion centers for the Department of Homeland Security. And of course, I'm talking about the Merchants Exchange building in San Francisco, 465 California Street, where the Merchant Exchange Club on the top floor has a club. They have a different address. It's the same building, though. It's the old trick, not the oldest trick in the book, where you have multiple addresses of the same location. 75 Leadersdorf Street is really 465 California Street. That address is an easement alley in the side. It's on the east side of the building, and you can go in and get in an express elevator to the top floor. You don't have to run into the riffraff in the lobby. The lobby is, of course, marble and gold lame. It's really quite fabulous. But for people who want to go directly to their luncheon or their dinner party at the Merchant Exchange Club, you can use an express elevator on the side door. They consider themselves the masters of the universe. I'm talking about the members of the Merchants Exchange Club and, of course, the Knights of Malta. The Knights of Malta are also in the Merchants Exchange building, and they are the fraternity brother for the Knights Templar, who were the soldiers who guarded the payroll for the merchant banks back in the Crusades days, right? That's where I circle back to the beginning of my video where I told you it was the banks who created the secret police. The banks created their own guards. They didn't hire a toothless German Shepherd and a 97-year-old security guard. They hired young men who were all trained in the military, trained to kill and to pacify and control. And they gave them jobs after their training was complete, high-paying jobs as security guards, custody, safekeeping, and also mercenaries for violence. If anyone should steal from the bank, they would employ a Gladio killer to balance the books, so to speak, right? If you had a shortage, if you had shrinkage, remember, you ever heard that term shrinkage? You know, the Chicago outfit, the boys, they don't believe in shrinkage. They don't believe in shrinkage. All right, because they believe in that this package should be a certain weight, right? This bag is light. You don't want to hear Remo Gaggi utter the words, this bag feels light, right? All right, let me walk you through the Merchant Exchange building at 465 California Street in San Francisco. This is the top floor. This is the Merchant Exchange conference room. This is a member. This is a drunkard. His name is Paul Pelosi, and he is a member of the Merchant Exchange Club. And he may be a member of the Knights Malta. Perhaps they booted him out when he crashed his Maserati. I don't know. This is the chemtrail right over CRISPR Therapeutics in Mission Bay, San Francisco. This is the magnificent Precision Medicine Human Augmentation Center in San Francisco at Mission Bay, right? This is the dining area of the Merchant Exchange building. This is the sky that they finance. They ruin their skies above the city of San Francisco, city of Sausalito, Mill Valley, Tiburon, where I'm going on a field trip tomorrow. It's all part of their zero trust system. They want to move us to human augmentation so that people only need an eyeball recognition and a palm print to conduct merchant banking. To go buy cigarettes at the liquor store, they're going to require security clearance to do that. And you're going to have social credit in the cloud. Of course, the cloud's pretty cloudy because of all the aluminum chalk that they're dumping. Anyway, this is all going on by the city by the bay on both sides of this bridge. This is the North Tower that you're seeing right here. It's the North Tower, and that I'm sitting on Marin County, where I'm going tomorrow. But across to my over here, this is San Francisco. And that's where all this military intelligence stuff went down. And this is where Paul Pelosi lives on Pacific Avenue. But he also has another home. He has another home this way over here in Napa. I guess I'm trying to point north. Anyway, it's hard to do when I'm facing backwards. But he has a number 2 Zinfandel Way in St. Helena, Napa Valley. So That's the zero trust of human augmentation using the merchant exchange club to use drunkards like Paul Pelosi and create ballrooms. This is the this is the Julia Morgan ballroom. Julia Morgan was an architect for William Randolph Hearst. She was the only female architect in California at the time, and she got to design most of William Randolph Hearst building. And this is her ballroom in the Merchant Exchange building there at 465 California Street, which is across the street from Bank of America's World Headquarters Tower. And you see, it can be organized for a private wedding, like the Ivy Love Getty wedding was organized at Civic Hall, where George Moscone was murdered. You could have a wedding here in this ballroom. All right, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you understand that bankers' most serious customers are business customers who are expressed in limited liability companies, corporations, family partnerships of wealthy people. And the bankers have private banking services, private meaning none of your business, for their best customers, which are the customers that offer retail services to the schmucks. Retail banking has never been considered the gold standard. It's the merchant banking and acquisitions and mergers and institutional services and trading and transaction fees for large depositors. That's the world in which we live. And that's where mercenaries were created, people who will fight for money, not for nationality or sovereignty or some delusion. They fight for money, for personal gain. Like the Spanish conquistadors, they fought the Indians to grab them, steal their land. But they would split their bounty, they're pirates. And you split the bounty with the banker who financed your ship. 50-50 split. And the officers get the lion's share of the split. The bank gets the biggest share. And then the officers of the Army and Navy, they get smaller shares. But the bank takes the dominant share of the bounty. That's how banking works, like a casino. They just never lose. Thanks for watching. Do share my videos because I am heavily shadow banned. See you on the next video. Take care now. Bye-bye.